Hi, I'm Jim Eves, and you're listening to the Honest Filmmaker podcast, career advice from people in the business. Today, I'm talking to MJ Dixon. Now, I tried to work out how many short films and features MJ's actually directed, and I couldn't get to that number myself. MJ runs Mycho Pictures with his wife, Anna Dixon, and they've created an entire horror universe. Thank you for joining me, MJ. So for anyone about to make their first feature, they're going to go down the crowdfunding route. Have you got any tips for them?
Well, I mean, my advice really would be don't crowdfund your first feature.
Okay.
Because I think you learn a lot on your first feature that isn't necessarily good, but you need to learn. So before I made Slash House, I made another feature called Creepsville. It was supposed to be a 14-day shoot in July of 2009, and it took 5 months to get through that principal photography and still didn't have everything in the can. It took another year to get everything. And then at that point, everyone was working on it for nothing. We had no real budget, but had a huge crew because I'd just graduated. And so a lot of people were like, oh, a film to work on. Excellent. We'll come and, but by the time it got to editing, and post, people just weren't interested anymore. You know, I was struggling to get the actors back to do ADR. The editor didn't he went and got a proper job doing house videos, so then he didn't have time to do that. And so eventually this film just ended up sitting on a hard drive. And if I'd crowdfunded that, I would have been in real trouble, because then I'm sat there going, how do I deliver this to people? In a form that I'm comfortable with, to a standard I'm comfortable with. And so I learned a lot of stuff on that first feature. If I'd crowdfunded that, that would have been my career marred forever. Yeah. Because I don't think I would have been able to deliver that, at least not in the satisfactory nature that I would have wanted. And so my advice really would be, don't shoot a film, even if it's not very good, because you can shoot a feature now for next to nothing. Just keep your idea simple. What can I set in one room with two people? If you're a filmmaker at this point, I feel like people who want to act, or it's very easy to find people who would like to just come and try, being in a film for a feature film or something, who would like that experience or would like that on their show reels or whatever. But that's what it's all about, really. It's about growing with the people you're working with a lot of the time, especially at the kind of low, no budget level. You're really relying on other people kind of wanting to get something out of it, the same way that you want to make films and people want to be in films, and it's about finding that connection. So my advice really would be, make your first, at very least, make a handful of short films. But I would try and make a feature on very little, no crowdfunding, just your own ingenuity, because that will come in really handy when it comes to your next thing, which is the crowdfunding. And then once you're crowdfunding, that's other people's money.
Yeah.
And so then you have to have that ingenuity built into you to be able to deliver on that.
And I suppose you've also, once you've done that first one, you've got a little bit of proof in the pudding, what you can do. And you've got people around you, sort of started to assemble this team. You have people you can rely on. Because some people, like you say, you get some people who are well up for it, and then they just sort of flake off into the distance. And you get others who are with you still, now, today. So I've done my first one. I've taken your advice. I've shot something on a phone, done a feature. I've learned a ton of stuff, and I'm about to set up a crowdfunding. What do I do? What's the three most important things about doing a crowdfunding campaign?
Right. I would say don't overshoot. That's number one.
Yep.
Big one. The amount of crowdfunders that come up 100 grand. I think, in 2010, someone launched a crowdfunder for 100 grand. And I think the most money any independent film had raised at that point was 30 grand or something. And that was from an established team. And I'm like, are you insane? And so they didn't raise anything whatsoever. And so that's a big thing. Yeah, don't overshoot. Really, what I would say is think about the money you actually need. Like, you know, bare bones. Like, if you weren't paying anyone and you were just doing it, like, you know, as favors and begging and borrowing and stealing, how much money do you actually need? Like 100%. Price all that up. What do you actually need, like in terms of props and locations? Price all that up, then try and cut it in half, because that's always possible. When you price everything up, you tend to look at the bog standard price for everything. And then what I tend to do is go, okay, how can I discount this stuff by 50%? Is it a location? Is there a location that would work the same but would be half the price? You know, is there a prop that would work but I can get it cheaper? Is there, you know, in terms of equipment, I'd love to shoot it on a red, but can I rent a Blackmagic for cheaper? Can I buy a Blackmagic for the price of renting a red, and then I have that for any pickups we need to do? There's no time scales that I need to stick to in terms of it's got to be at the rental house, it's got to come out, it's got to go back. You know, in terms of lenses, I mean, I could go on forever.
Sure. So number one, don't overshoot.
Don't overshoot. Always try and get the money you need, not the money you'd like. Because, like, I mean, I'd like, you know, 50 grand to make a film, but the reality is, if I have to, I can do it on.
You could make about 20 films for 50 grand, couldn't you? 30, 50.
Yeah, why not?
All right. So give me number two. What's number two?
Number two is never, ever, ever go through flexible funding. Ever.
So for people who don't know, define that to me. What is that?
Right. So Kickstarter is not so much of a problem. Kickstarter, it's an all or nothing thing. So you set your price. Say you want to raise 5 grand to make a film. You set your price. If you don't raise that 5 grand, you don't get anything, and that's it. It's over, closed, done. But Indiegogo do a thing called flexible funding, where you can do all or nothing, where again works exactly the same. If you don't raise your 5 grand, you get absolutely nothing. Or they do a thing called flexible funding, where you get to keep whatever money you make, even if it's not the goal, but you get a higher premium on the rates they take off the top, which is another thing we'll talk about, I'm sure, later on, which is very important. But yes, essentially, flexible funding is like a fucking pit of death for filmmakers. And I see it happen time and time again. So, like, what you'll get is someone going, okay, I want to raise 20 grand to make, you know, Sharktastic Slasher 3 or whatever, 3D. They've never made a film before, or they've made a couple of bits and bobs, but they've decided now's the time they want to make their feature film. 20 grand is the least they could do it on, and that's like, you know, that's with them sacrificing the caviar that you'd usually have and all that, you know, like, but they go, I'll put it on flexible funding, because at least if we don't make 20 grand, what if we make 19 grand? Then, you know, well, what happens is they make 1,200 quid. But unfortunately, some people have put 100, 200 money, you know, pounds into your film, and now they expect that a product. And the problem is that at the end of that, then Indiegogo comes along and goes, okay, here's your money, but that premium, that's a lot more because you didn't reach your goal. So we'll take a good chunk of that. And they already do that anyway. But when you haven't reached your goal, they're taking a good quarter of that.
Wow. So
now what happens is you've got 1,200 quid minus quarter of that. So whatever that is, 900. So you've got £900 left. So now you're in a bit of a position where you can't really refund people without paying out your own pocket. So now you've just paid, and this is, if you're lucky, about 300 quid to refund people, if you have that. which is a filmmaker in their early career. I certainly didn't, you know, otherwise I wouldn't be crowdfunding. I'd be looking for, so, but if you make considerably more than that, you can see where the problem starts to come in. So say you made 5 grand of your 20 grand, and then they come in and take quarter of that. You've now got to find thousands of pounds and so it's like a money pit. So you either have to deliver the film that needed 20 grand now on 900 quid, or you have to refund those people out of your own pocket. You see the issue? Like, and so I see it happen time and time again. And what happens is the film just doesn't happen. These people get marred with like a horrible reputation, and then they can never make another film because they can't go crowdfunding again, because then their next campaign is just full of people going, where's my fucking money off the last one? Where's the last one? This guy's a scam artist, blah, 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 blah. You know, so you get all that from that. And then on top of that, it's really hard to find private finance for a film if you've got nothing under your belt. So what happens is people end up killing their careers with flexible funding before they even start.
Wow. And do you think flexible funding has any psychological effect on the funders?
Yeah. Well, I think it looks like people are just after whatever money they can get.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, technically they don't have to deliver it by the rules of crowdfunding. Like, you know, you're not buying a product, you're investing in a person. I mean, they say that when you know, when you back a campaign, they go, this isn't a product, you know, we can't guarantee that these people will deliver. You're investing in a product or a service or a person or a team. But your reputation gets hurt. I mean, my reputation gets hurt all the time by other people doing that.
Oh, really? Oh, right.
Oh, yeah. So, like, I'll get a lot of people going, sorry, I don't trust crowdfunding. I've backed a bunch of crowdfunders, and I go, oh, so I'm not backing yours. Oh, well, we've delivered like 9 products. Yeah, but other people say that, don't they? Well, I guess. Like, you know, so, it not only hurts those filmmakers, but it hurts the filmmakers who actively, you know, do deliver on it still.
Sure.
So I think I don't know if I've got a third.
You haven't got a third. What about like because what you seem to do is when you put a film up to get crowdfunded, you make it look like it's a real thing. Do you know what I mean? Very early on, you've got your artwork.
I mean, I hope that it is a real thing. Otherwise, I'm in trouble.
But I guess what I mean is you go. It looks like you go to the trouble to really put a lot of effort into artwork, into absolutely everything. So it looks like a thing. It doesn't look like a thing that's going to happen. It looks like it kind of already exists. And is there?
I mean, there's nothing worse than scrolling through a crowdfunder. If I don't know a person and I'm looking through their thing and it's like they've used the bare bones template, there's not even a picture on there.
Yeah.
They're like, we need 10 grand to make Friday the 13th, the Savage Killers or whatever. We've never made a film before, but it's going to be really good, I promise. Like, you know, we need money for things like paying for burgers and, you know, like, and that's what it says. Or sometimes they just fucking leave the text in there, that, you know, that describes what you should write there. That's even funnier. That said, I see people raise fucking tens of thousands of pounds with fucking campaigns like that. So
yeah, well then I guess that could be, because I think what you see is, and what I've seen a lot of chatting to students is, these days they all crowdfund their final project, which to me, I'm like, do not do that. You're piling all this money into what is effectively a short film, and it's also a short film that you're going to be a bit constrained by because you're going to have to work with certain people on your course. And once you've asked Nanny and Auntie for money, they're unlikely to then go, oh, go on then, here's another £100, here's another £100. So you're sort of spaffing that one shot you've got.
Well, yeah, also university's kind of like a weird mini studio system where like you might be like the Tarantino of your class, but that doesn't extend to the real world.
Yeah.
So it teaches you like really poor lessons where like, yeah, you might be like the most, you know, the coolest filmmaker out of like the 17 people in year 3.
Yeah.
But once you come out into the real world, you're up against everybody then. And so it teaches you like the wrong lessons, I think, in terms of crowdfunding, that kind of stuff. I think I have thought of a third one.
Go on then.
So it is a full-time job. Crowdfunding.
Yeah.
Full-time job. It's honestly the worst. Like, I'm not even kidding. Like, the best way I can describe it is, it's like making a film. It's putting all that effort in day out. You know, when you're on set and you get up at 6 o'clock in the morning and you really don't want to, but you've gotta, you know, and you like all this stuff needs doing. People are contacting you about all sorts of things. And you're doing this and doing that. And you're just going, I just need to get this together. You know, like I need to focus. And you do that until like 12 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the morning, fall asleep, get up at 6 and start again. And you do that for like a month. And then you have to go and make the film. Like, because you've, like, what people don't realize about crowdfunding is it is like almost a 24-hour job.
Yeah.
You've got to get up at 6 in the morning to hit people before they go to work. Because most people, once they go to work, aren't really checking the internet for like non-business related things a lot of the time. And outside of social media and their mate, you know, where their mates are going for lunch or whatever, they're not really looking at anything like that. So you've got to hit them at lunch, at what you call it, before they go to work, when they're having their coffee. You've got to have posts, fresh new posts up, ready. This is what we're doing. This is what's available today. You know, this is how the campaign's going today. You've got to get that and make people like feel like they need to be involved in it. You've got to get them again at lunchtime. Like, you know, they go for lunch and they scroll through their phones for an hour. You've got to make sure they're seeing that and they're going, oh yeah, that guy is doing that thing, right? Yeah, well, I was interested in that. Oh, it's payday today, actually. You know, bang, you've got to get them then. And then you've got to get them when they come home from work, when they're just sat watching the TV and they'll skip through their phone. Oh yeah, that campaign's going on. And you've got to hit them. And then the rest of the time in between that, you're making artwork, you're making posts, you're talking to people, you're doing thank you posts, you're doing you know, updates on the campaign. With me, a lot of the time we're doing like photo shoots around and stuff, you know, test shoots and stuff around it, so that there's stuff to show people, look, this is a thing that's actually happening, you know, like, and it's a 24/7 job, really, for a month, which is a long time to. And what I usually see is people launch a crowdfunder, they go, here's our crowdfunder, like they get a couple £100 the first day, and then they go, oh, no one gave anything on the second day. All right, okay, well, remember we're doing a crowdfunder, everyone? But you know, it's in the middle of the night or whatever when they're worried about it. And then next thing, day 7, well, no, obviously no one's given to this, but you know, you should. And then, well, there's only 2 days left on this. It's obvious we're not going to make it. And then that's the, you know, like, that's the post lineage that you see. And it can't be like that. It's you're taking people's money, and so that deserves your full attention and effort. It's not fun, but again, there are benefits to it. You know, I'm not trying to put people off it.
No, it's interesting because from the outside, what people see is they say, oh, he's doing another film. Oh, it's been funded. Do you know what I mean? If, say, for instance, someone's put money into one, they might see another one pop up. Life gets in the way, they don't fund it, and they go, oh, that one's done all right as well. He must have a bank of people he goes to that always fund his films. But clearly it's not that. It's perseverance and
I mean, there are like, I mean, over the years, there's names that have popped up that have gone, oh, it's that guy again.
Yeah.
You know, like, and at first it just seemed like an anomaly, you know, like, oh, or like, I recognize that name. But then you go, oh, every time, without fail, day one, you know, Trevor Poole's in there, Trev Poole, every time.
Oh,
you
cool.
know, like,
yeah.
Or like, but also then we've had like every so often you'll have someone who comes and puts a big amount on one film.
Yeah.
And you say, like, this is not an investment, you'll never get your money back. Yeah, I know. Well, then they won't ever do it again.
Yeah.
You know, that was their one time that they wanted to fund a film.
So we talked about crowdfunding. Also, another thing you seem to be really good at is this sort of diversification. So you've got, I had to write these down. You've got, where is it? You've got toys, clothing, games, comics, music videos. Why have you done that? And does that not take your time away from your films?
Yes. I don't know, and yes. No, I guess a lot of it comes down to I want things to exist, but then like finding the right people to do it is almost or usually more work than figuring it out myself and doing it.
Yeah.
And what I tend to find is that when I do find someone to help to do something, or who goes, I'll do that, they either don't do it or they do a job that I think, okay, well, I definitely could have done it. That,
Yeah.
you know, so yeah, there's partially that. I mean, I grew up in the 90s, and a thing that always stuck with me was that Todd McFarlane once said, to have success in a franchise, you need your 4 pillars, which are movies, cartoons, comics, and toys. And I was like, oh, right, that's interesting. So like I just kind of grew up kind of going like, well, I want that one day, you know. And then you get sick of waiting a little bit, really. Like we got featured in like there was like an indie comic that licensed some of our characters a few years ago.
Yeah.
And that was really amazing to see that start to come to life. And they were sharing pictures from it, and there was like a big poster of Thorn versus the Dollman, Chris O'Reilly's Dollman, and stuff like that. And I was like, wow, like this is. And then the comic just never happened.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, well, that's a huge disappointment. Like, but I want it to happen. I want that, you know. So then I think, well, I can draw a bit. So then I'd sit down and just go, well, can I draw a comic? Guess we'll find out. And then I did. And then, you know, and then so then that starts, but then that becomes a thing where I have to do that all the time now, because people are like, when's the next comic? And I'm like, okay. So that takes a bit more effort out of me. But again, it is fun. It's quite addictive fun.
Yeah, and there's something to be said for knowing and understanding how lots of different things work, especially in filmmaking. You don't need to be as good as the sound man, but you do need to know how that equipment works in case. And you need to know
not
how
even
to
in
edit,
case, because you have to understand their job.
Yeah.
Really. The amount of film sets I've been on where people don't understand why I'm doing what I'm doing as a lighting tech or a cameraman, or, you know, like, or even a sound guy. The director doesn't understand what I'm doing, or why we have to choose this lens, or why we can't do a tracking shot with an 85mm, you know, like, and that's all stuff you need to understand. And when I go onto a set, I know what other people are doing, or what's achievable, what's not achievable, and that's important, I think.
Yeah, and there's also value in knowing when someone says something's not possible.
Yeah,
you can go, well, actually, that is possible. I know, you know, and they might not be doing it to be obtuse and to be difficult. They might just not kind of worked it out themselves. But you've got the ability to go, actually, that will work. That thing I want to do, because this is how it's going to work.
Yeah.
So what about directing? So what's your style of directing? How do you, because horror can be a little bit maligned as sort of, you know, pick the knife up, that's it, chase him, stab him, that's it, you know. Is that you? What do you do?
Well, I try not to ruin my sound, if anything.
Oh, you don't? Oh, I talk over all my takes.
No, never. Every so often I'll go and run after him, and all the actors look at me like, what? And then I go, because we haven't got that far into the scene, but I think, oh, that would have been a good moment to like transition to the
change things during the take.
But by that point, they're so used to me letting them. But I suppose my directing style really is what I call the reel it in, where, to be honest, once I write a script and get to set, if someone says, "What's the next line?" I go, I don't know. Like I haven't got a clue. Like, even if you just said it, I wouldn't be able to tell you what you just said.
Yeah.
Like, what I tend to do is go, right, show me the scene, and actors have learned the scene that I wrote 8 months ago or whatever, or currently like 4 years ago, I wrote the script we were shooting at the minute. So I go, show me the scene, and they start going through it, and I go, so it's like seeing it for the first time.
Yeah.
So I'm looking at it, and I'm going, okay, that's good. Like, but now, so it's like watching a film, really, that I know nothing about. But then what I get to do is go, oh, right, well, if I was the director, oh, well, I am. What would I change about that performance? And I can do that. And so what I tend to do is I let actors feel it out, because actors tend to know their characters sometimes better than you do, especially by, like, day 16 of the shoot. They've been living this character day in, day out, and you're going from making ninja claws to making sure there's enough vegan sandwiches to, so, but they've been in that headspace the whole time. So you let them feel it out. And then if anyone goes too far, you go, reel that in place.
Yeah.
Just come back to, I think more like this.
So now what I'm guessing is your favorite part of the filmmaking process, sales and distribution. What have you what have you learned from that you would want to tell somebody?
Everybody's a cowboy. Everybody wants to rip you off. It's kind of generally the outlook that I have. No, it's a tough one, really, because I've done it. We've done it all now. We've been through, like, traditional distributors. We've done it ourselves. We've been on, like, what I would call legitimate services. We've been on illegitimate services. We've been pirated. We've been, it's just, every approach kind of has its benefits and its downfalls. So I guess I'll try and sum those up. So self-distribution is, you can probably make the money for your film back if you try really fucking hard every day of the week, forever, for like the next 3 or 4 years. You'll probably make back that 5-10 grand you put into a low budget film. If you work really hard at it, selling DVDs off your own website and trying to kind of license it on streaming services yourself and things like that, you can make your own money back. It's really hard. It's really a lot of work, but the upside is that you own your own film. Any money that comes in is your money. And that's you're the master of your own destiny, and that's nice. I like that. And also, you kind of get a bit more of an inside scoop on how the market works, which is really good for you going forward as a filmmaker. That's really what happened to us, is we got an inside scoop on how the market worked. We worked toward that, and then we did it so well that a distributor picked up the films that we put together for how we considered the market at that time to be working. So, because what we did is we looked at the market from a point of view that we'd been putting films into and going, what is selling? When is it selling? And then because we hit that market right, then suddenly distributors went, oh, you've got something that's worth some money because you've hit it, the right thing at the right time. But that's hard to do when you've got to kind of really engross yourself into it. But then, but also we've signed with kind of what I would call a mid-sized distributor. So not one of the big studios, but people who release kind of like classic versions of big studio films and stuff. But the problem with signing through a distributor is you almost never get paid anything, ever. Like, on the odd time we have, it's been a bit of a struggle to get that money, even when there's been, oh, we'll pay you X amount, or up front or whatever. Trying to actually get that money into our bank accounts has been, like, sometimes litigious, because they just don't want to part with that money. Like, they want your film. Everyone wants your film because almost all films are worth some money to distributors. I mean, that's the reality of it. And they'll tell you the opposite. They'll go, it's got nobody in it, so no one cares, honestly. As long as the poster's right, or even then, it doesn't have to be right. As long as it exists, somewhat people will be interested in it. If as long as it's available to watch, someone will want to watch it, or a handful of people will want to watch it. All films really are worth some money. And distributors know that, but they'll try and tell you why it's not worth anything and why you should just give it to them, and they'll sort you out, they promise, on the back end. And this is a problem, I think, is unless basically someone's paying you to go away, like one of the bigger distributors, you know, like Sony or one of their kind of subsidiaries, or Paramount or Universal, or one of their kind of straight-to-video subsidiaries, you're going to find it very difficult to make a meaningful amount of money. Back in kind of like just before the HD revolution, I could see that you could make a film for 35, 40 grand and make 60 grand back on an MG.
Yeah,
you know,
I mean, that I was saying to somebody the other night. So the first film I made, Diagnosis, we went to Cannes 98, I think. Everything was shot on film, and we got 40 grand minimum guarantee, and we saw some of that money. And then it was like the next year, HD films, and then it was all over. It was just, there was more stuff. Nothing's worth anything anymore. It's all worthless. So we don't have to pay, which is a shame, because it's the digital revolution. It's giving filmmakers all that freedom. At the same time, it's binding them to not making any money out of it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we went from, while I was making Creepsville, the film that never happened, to getting offers from Warner Brothers and Paramount. Well, they have like low budget subsidiaries that you'll recognize on the shelves, usually under a different name, like 4 Digital and things like that, are subsidiaries of the bigger studios that make kind of supermarket shelf fillers, I guess, as we call them now. We were getting offers before the film was even done then. An SD film shot on digital, you know, we were getting offered literally within 2 years of finishing, you know, it took us to finish Slasher House. The MGs were like 1,500 quid. It's just, and obviously none of the big studios came. I think we had E1, but they didn't want to pay us anything. And so, you know, it went from everyone, like, you know, if you made a film, people would take notice, to there's too much there. Like, there's too many people doing it now. You know, you, unless you've got someone famous, we're not interested, kind of thing.
Thanks for listening. If you want all the behind the scenes information that's going to help you with a career in a creative industry, then please do subscribe.